I'm Chrystal.
And I'm Vinny, and the service project that we're doing is the Veggie Garden. Just the executive summary and the basic overview of what we're doing. The service project that we will be doing in South Africa is building a veggie garden for the Varkplaas community. The communal veggie garden will hopefully provide nutrients in their food and they could live a healthier lifestyle. And we are also hoping that possibly with the stuff they don't use, either to cook or they eat, that they will be able to hopefully sell those and produce another income for the community.
Okay, so obviously there's an issue of sand in this community. The community has experienced problems in the past with sand blowing into their area. Obviously we don't want sand blowing onto our vegetable garden. So combine that with the fact that during the winter the weather in Cape Town is very windy. Winds get very aggressive. And those are really the main obstacles we identified to developing our vegetable garden. Keeping that in mind, though, we think that we have developed a plan that's going to successfully will allow each member of the community to live a healthier lifestyle by giving them a communal, sustainable vegetable garden. And we're hoping that that'll allow their community to prosper in the future.
Problem identification and assessment. The problem. The obvious problem is that the community does not have a veggie garden. Being that the community is very underprivileged, they do not have the resources to build a sustainable garden that we do and the money we raise, so that's where we come in. And also another problem is that because they do not have these resources to build their own garden, they don't have a communal source of nutrition, which I think is very important. How do we know? We know this through the information that Tamron has sent us and the Tippy Toes Foundation. Basically, she got input from the community and made a video and pictures and posted it on a website that we saw. So through those videos, the kids told us what they need and the community told us what they need. So based on that information, that's how we knew we needed to build a veggie garden. Why is there a need? Like I stressed before, it's very important to eat healthy, and the villagers are not receiving the proper foods needed for a healthy diet. Sadly, because they have nothing to do, the villagers, they've been subjected to alcohol and drug abuse. So by building this veggie garden, not only will it provide them with food, but it'll give them something to do for the upkeep after, and hopefully they'll be willing to do that. And also, like I said, with the economic benefit it can provide, by selling hopefully their vegetables that they grow, maybe they can produce an additional income for the community. Possible solution, obviously, would to build the veggie garden, and not only to build it, but to build it in the right way that will withstand the severe weather conditions. Like Evan stressed earlier, it's very, very windy in the winter, which is when we'll be going down there. And because it's so windy, not only may it knock down some of the stuff we put up, we have to make sure that's nice and secure. It will also, the sand blows in, so the sand would destroy the crops. So we have to make sure we protect the garden also.
Okay, so moving on to our concept and plan of action, this picture is really just to give you like a very basic idea of what our vision is. What we want to do, instead of just making like one giant field out of the space that we've been allotted, we want to build basically several small enclosures that are going to be constructed basically like a sandbox looking structure, and that's going to be enclosed, we refer to as a tunnel enclosure. It's going to be enclosed by a bunch of hoops. The ones that we're going to use are much smaller than the ones in that picture, much lower and wider, like a more wide oval shape. Those high-rise ones are available for a slightly higher price if we have that need. For example, if we need extra high stakes for tomatoes or some crop that needs high stakes like that, we will have that opportunity, but we're planning to use much shorter ones, and we think those will withstand the wind better. Okay, so what we are doing is developing a vegetable garden, obviously, in the 35 meter by 20 meter space that we've been allotted. We're going to be using these tunnel enclosures that protect the vegetables mainly from sand. I forgot to mention earlier, on top of the hoops obviously will be a plastic cover. Earlier we were considering using netted covers, but We received feedback that this would be a better idea, so we've decided to do this. There's no chance that the sand will get through. We know that it is very fine, so netted covers are really made to keep bugs out, so we weren't entirely confident that that would actually work against this very fine sand. Separating the garden into individual enclosures, it was more practical because it would be really difficult to keep all the sand out if we just had it in one giant field. Obviously, when we've got them in these small enclosures, it's easy to just drape that plastic cover over each individual tunnel enclosure. It also gives us the opportunity to sort the vegetables accordingly, maybe into groups that are watered on similar schedules or ones that have similar characteristics, things like that. Supplies that we'll be using, mostly very basic supplies. We need wood to support the tunnel enclosures that we'll be building, and also to build a fence around the large general area in order to keep out animals and small animals and children. We need the seeds to plant for the vegetables. We'll require the plastic covering to go over our tunnel enclosures, the hoops to hold it up. We'll require traditional compost to mix in with the soil. We'll be using a soil additive called Bokashi that was actually brought to our attention by a family friend of Chrystal's, and she'll touch upon this in more depth later. But a guy who lives and works in South Africa and has some NGO experience using Bokashi. It's an organic soil additive, and they have a website with all these videos that show, experiments they've done planting, all traditional compost versus a 50-50 or so mix of Bokashi and traditional compost. And it seems that they have much better results, and it supposedly eliminates the need for insecticides and fertilizers, and it's very inexpensive to the community, and we know that it's accessible in South Africa. So, finally, soil that we'll be mixing in ourselves, and of course just the most basic gardening tools: shovels, troughs, spades, things like that. So are these materials accessible? Yes, they're all very, very simple materials. We know for a fact that we can get all of these supplies in South Africa. We've seen all of them actually on a quote that was already provided to us by Tamarin from a local gardening store. The only thing that we haven't 100% confirmed that we can get in South Africa yet is the hoops and the plastic cover that we need for our tunnel enclosures. We just haven't confirmed that yet, but we're pretty confident that we will be able to find it at your average garden store there. In the event that we're not, though, we have found websites that offer them here. We have gotten price quotes on them, and they're relatively inexpensive. So worst case scenario, we do have to have them shipped to South Africa, but they're small. They don't take up a lot of room, so it shouldn't be an issue. And of course, everything will be ready for us. There's nothing that needs to be really prepared for us before we get there, and assembly shouldn't really be an issue. So is this a one-time fix or is it recurring? Obviously, there's only so much we can do with this kind of project. As soon as we leave, it really becomes the community's responsibility. All the day-to-day upkeep of something like this, they have to harvest the first set of crops that we put in there, and of course, it will be their responsibility to replant future harvests, as well as adapt to the changing seasons. You're not going to plant the same group of vegetables all year. We don't want to just leave that all on them. We do want to develop some sort of schedule, some sort of plan to leave them with, recommendations for what kind of vegetables grow best in the summer as opposed to the winter, a schedule for watering the various groups of vegetables that we plant. So our direct process, the first thing we have to do is remove the top layer remove the very top layer of soil that's in the area right now. Because of the sand issue, there's a lot of sand on it, and Tamarin has told us that that top layer of soil is really infertile and pretty much useless. But right underneath it, all the soil is extremely fertile. So as soon as we remove that, we can really start to get to work. After we've done that, we can sort the soil into our individual tunnel enclosures. At that point, we'll mix in our additional soil, compost, and our Bokashi in each enclosure, at which point we can plant our seeds. Building a fence is a separate process. We can do that either, depending on what works best and depending on how much help we have. We can do that either after we're done with our individual enclosures or simultaneously, because it's a separate project.
Who will participate? Both ourselves and members from the community will be involved in setting up and planting the garden, and this also allows for the community to get involved and be aware of maintaining the maintenance required. Since we only have 2 days, we believe that we'll be able to complete it with that time. If we all work together and divide up the work, we should be fine. Long-term goals. The garden provides the community with a sustainable source of veggies and nourishment. It could also provide a small income if they can sell any extra crops they may have. And as long as the community works together and maintains the garden and takes care of it, it'll be around as long as they are. I had gotten in contact with a family friend of mine, Eric, who's actually been living in South Africa for 20 years, and he has a lot of NGO experience and actually has done veggie gardens before, and they have been extremely successful, and he was the one who recommended the bokashi and said that if we use it, it'll be fine. Budget outline.
As far as all of these seeds go, these are the ones that we looked up on the website that will grow in the winter. So as you can see, we have put about like 8 on there. There are plenty more different varieties, but just to give you a general idea, it's not expensive at all. For the most expensive thing that we found, it came out to about $2.56 for 25 seeds of garlic, and it's basically the same for everything else. And we found the prices in the RAN because it was on a South African website, and we just converted it over. So those are pretty accurate.
Yeah, and all the tools and materials, we also got the majority of this from stores and websites based in South Africa. And approximately with everything we need, it would come out to $160.
Yeah, the challenges. We came up with 4 challenges that we thought were the biggest. Number 1 is the weather. The weather changes how we go about this project, because if we were going during the summer, even still they're by a beach, and the sand is a big issue there, not only for this garden, but like all the other projects, stressed at the houses and everything. So we thought weather was a big one. Time, this is a big project, and like we said, we have 2 days to complete it, so we're going to try and complete it as best we can, but if we don't, we would hopefully leave them a schedule that they can complete it or work on it further. Also, doing the fence is kind of a whole separate project in itself, so with hopefully the community pitching in, we could get that done. The money, it's not very expensive, and considering how much money we made with the Quinnipiac Bobcat, we thought that money seemed like a challenge, but as it's looking now, we don't know if something's going to go wrong, so we may need more money, so it could always be a challenge. And the space. Our space we were given is 35 by 20 meters, which is a lot. So what the problem would be with the space is actually using the entire space efficiently with the amount of stuff we have, because we don't want any of the space to go to waste, so we have to plan out accordingly.
Okay, so how do we measure success with a project like this? Obviously, most of our goals here are long-term. You know, we're not going to be around to even see the first group of vegetables that we plant get harvested. But that doesn't mean that we can't start evaluating ourselves and how we did on this project as soon as we're done working there. Because what we can do is we can think about, you know, what worked and what didn't work. When we got there to the ground in South Africa, what part of our planning process proved to be flawed? You know, very rarely does everything go exactly as planned. So we're going to get there and we're probably going to need to make some changes. There's going to be unforeseen complications. And what's important is that you learn from those things. By asking ourselves questions like what worked and what didn't. You know, how good, in hindsight, how good was our planning process? What should we have accounted for that we didn't account for? And when we answer those kind of questions, what we can do is we can really start to establish just a general understanding of how to plan service projects like this, because most of us haven't done it before. So having that knowledge moving forward will be beneficial to us, and more importantly, beneficial to future classes that do these kinds of projects.
Checking up on the project, our main way that we would check up on the project would obviously be through Tamron. We would love to get updates either through the QU301 website or maybe even the Tippy Toes Foundation website. And why we think this is important and why we should do this is because for the future projects that are later going to go there, like we were saying before, there are going to be other QU301 classes hopefully going there. And we think that it's important that we learn from what we did wrong or what we did right, and that we could possibly help other people. And also just for like replacements, if they don't have the resources that we have, so maybe if they need something replaced in the future, she could let us know and we could do fundraising. So we thought that would be a good idea also.
Okay, so in conclusion, with the plan we've outlined, we think that we will be able to successfully accomplish our goal, which is obviously to provide the community with a healthy and sustainable communal food source. So in addition to hopefully making each member of the community live longer, happier lives because they're healthier, there is obviously a possibility of their surplus being used as cash crops to generate income for the community. Those two things combined with each other, we think will really improve their lifestyle. And more than just making their day-to-day lifestyle happier, we think that it'll instill a huge sense of purpose and opportunity in them. Because, as has been mentioned before, people in this community struggle with drug addiction and alcohol addiction. That's because, at times in communities like this that are low income, as you can imagine, they just don't really see much opportunity and they don't really see a reason to try. But when you give someone the feeling that, you're investing in them, when you kind of open that door for them and give them the opportunity to walk through it, what we're hoping is that this will motivate them, is that this gesture by us will really motivate them to continue putting in the effort to sustain this garden, because that's their responsibility, and that they'll continue to try to make as many improvements for themselves as they can in the future.
We did come up with one alternative. It was a greenhouse kit that we came across. And although this was easy to assemble, safe and effective, the price for it was expensive. So even though it's an option, it's not practical for our project.
Questions? So let's see here. Will the plastic wear on the enclosures, and how frequently would you have to change it if you have sand blowing against it and weather?
The plastic that we researched, it's actually UV protected and it's durable against wind, sand, and all that. It's from a gardening website and they said it's effective. So we believe that it shouldn't wear, but I mean, if it needs to be replaced, it can always get more. I mean, it's not that expensive, so.
And I guess, how will you upkeep the gardens after we leave?
We're physically not going to be able to upkeep it ourselves, obviously, but we could hopefully instill in these people that we're investing our time in them, and hopefully it's only going to benefit them. Once we're gone, we really we could possibly donate or give our input, but we're not there to water for them every day. Like the leaders of the community, hopefully we can get across to them that this could really benefit them, even though they might not see the results right away because it's going to take some time. But if they're willing to keep doing it, that it'll be a success in the end.
And they requested a veggie garden, correct? Mm-hmm. So hopefully they'll have some sort of investment.
Yeah.
And there are people in this community who have experience with gardening, so we should definitely take the opportunity to work with them when it comes to developing the basic schedule for watering all the groups of plants and things like that.
How many stepping stones? I saw that you had $2 a stepping stone, but it didn't say how many stepping stones you were going to have, and how many troughs are you planning?
For the stepping stones, it was an idea by Tamron, just so we can kind of create a little path throughout each one we do. We're not really sure how many we need at the moment because we haven't figured out all that, but we can always just figure that out later.
With our idea also with the stepping stones, that was mainly so they didn't step on the plants. I feel like if we separate them with a high enough piece of wood, maybe that high, that won't be an issue. I mean, it would look nice, but in reality, we want to get the project done as fast as we can. So stepping stones may not be our first priority, you know what I'm saying? It's just there, just in case we decide to do. We have a basic idea of how much it would cost. So.
And how many troughs are we looking at?
We're not entirely sure yet, to be honest. We're at the point where we just want to make sure we can build one of these small enclosures successfully before we worry about building 5 more, So.
And all those vegetables are...
They're winter. We looked them up.
We sent that to Tamron, and she didn't have time to get too thorough about it, but she said all those sound great. They're winter vegetables,
And they're things that are native that they can grow in South Africa.
Yeah, it's all off South African website. Also, she mentioned that herbs would be good, because they cook. So we put some herbs on there. Hopefully, we can provide them with some of those because they'll use that a lot during cooking.
Questions? I have a couple more, but
yeah, I just have one. My question is, you mentioned, you touched upon the animals. Do you know what type of animals or if there are any animals specific to that? I mean, you said animals, so I'm assuming there's going to be some type of animals, but I don't even know what animals those would be. I know here we worry about deer and whatnot eating.
I would have to guess, honestly. Tamarin brought that concern up to us. She said, I think we should have a fence to keep out children and small animals, is what she said. So hopefully nothing big enough to jump over a fence about yay high. But.
The other question was, and I commend you to a very thorough job, so well done. I just was, you mentioned a little bit, Evan, about the, about sustainability, about giving them sort of a schedule, about like, and so I thought that was good, and maybe to add to it is to come up with, because I don't know how many, some of them maybe know how to garden, some may not know.
Yeah, the guy who owns land, I believe, is a gardener or like a farmer.
Farmer.
So,
okay, so so like you said, there's experience. I was thinking maybe there's some sort of structured plan that you can sort of print, get ready together to deliver to them of some sort, just for the ones that are uneducated about it. Like you said, there are people that are experienced, so that would be good, but maybe for the ones that aren't experienced.
Yeah, I definitely.
But you touched upon it, which I just think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I definitely think we need to work with them when we get down there, because honestly, we don't really know that much about gardening. The people within the community who have nurtured successful gardens of their own, of which there are those people, Tamarin told us that. I think that they may have a lot of knowledge to offer us, so I think it's important to work with them when it comes to developing a schedule for maintaining the garden, and obviously to work with the community leaders who have that voice of influence over the people to motivate them all to participate actively in it.
So of the 4 projects, maybe it's because I'm not a anything farmer type person, this seems like the most complicated. Are you sure that you can get it done in 2 days?
None of us are gardeners or either.
Yeah, none of us are gardeners either, but I'm feeling pretty confident at this point, honestly. I think we have a good plan. So
Personally, I feel maybe not the entire area, but I think we set an example by doing just one, that possibly working with them, telling them what they need to do and going through a process with them, so you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone while teaching them, while also building it, that they could finish it themselves. And I'll give them something to do, because like we said, with the drugs and alcohol, it's sad here, but this would be good for them to do on their own also when we're not there. So.
You mentioned that you would group the different plants by maybe their watering schedule. Have you kind of thought about what their watering schedule is, or how to do that so that you can tell them like these should be planted together?
I mean, I don't know about watering wise, but I know we looked up on some websites how you can't like put potatoes next to certain things because they grow really deep in the ground. So you can't put that next to like let's say tomatoes. I'm not sure exactly, but I don't know watering wise, but I do know that some plants interfere and can't grow properly with other plants next to them and stuff like that.
How much topsoil is there, and how long would it take to get to that? And would it almost be better to, if you're building these little enclosures, the troughs, to just put fertile soil on top of that?
We were considering both of those things. We don't know how far, like obviously we haven't been there, so we don't know how like deep it is, but depending on that, we would either just dig and use some of that and then mix in what we have, or just completely use bokashi and other compost and soil.
And we sent all of Tamarin's info to this guy Eric, and because he seems like he could be really helpful, so hopefully they can get together maybe, because he said he could probably get us some of this bokashi because it seems like it's a really good thing to use. So hopefully they could also help us a lot, because he's been really helpful, this guy Eric.
Yeah, he really wants to help us out, and he's even talking about like for future, like he wants to get in contact with Tamarin, and he said he lives at the Northern Cape, so he can't physically come there because it's like 10 hours away. But he does want to help as much as possible, and he's been very helpful with giving us advice and what we should do, because he has done it before and he has been extremely successful with it. So.
Other questions? Nice job.